Perfect. So, welcome to the webinar on Agentic AI. And my name is Martis Sandren, and I have Ronald on the call with me. So, Ronald, do you want to introduce yourself?
Of course, yeah. Ronald van der Pol. I lead the solutions engineering team for Okta in the Benelux. With Okta, we have two main products. That's Okta for the internal employee side and Auth0 for the external side, custom identity and access management. And been here for almost 7 years by now. Background in development, in a little bit of product management, a little bit of Scrum Master, and started at Okta as a solution engineer back in 2019. And I've been leading this team for 3 years now, I think.
Sounds good. So the topic of today is Agentic AI, and I just came back from EIC, and there were lots and lots of talk about AI. So, how does you look at Agentic AI on a high level?
That's a broad question because there's a personal side to it, of course, in the enthusiasm and I think the things that we are able to do with Agentic AI. And then on the other side, of course, there's also the risks that it comes with, that we don't know what future we're going into with Agentic AI. But if we stay at the enthusiastic side, I think you can already see massive gains in productivity and on the other hand, we also see that there's massive risk on how are these agents getting access to your data, your applications, because they are being sent out to do tasks on your behalf. How do you make sure that data, those resources, all the tasks that need to be done are done in a correct way and with the right permissions and the right length of the session, etc. So it's a bit of a double coin, but enthusiasm is definitely the bigger one.
So when you look at agents, there are a couple of different steps that you usually see. So I think a lot of people are kind of getting to the point that step one is to at least register the agent with its purpose and its owner. One question there is the agent should be seen as more like a service account, so associated with a user, or more like a freestanding entity at the same level as the user?
Yeah.
What's your opinion on this?
I think that's maybe the most important question, I think, around these agents. And I think the vision on getting these agents and treating them as a service account is a little bit what gotten us into the situation that we're in right now, where there's a massive amount of risk. Because if you look at the characteristics of a service account, they're usually quite long-lived tokens, API secrets that are being given out. They're usually quite broad in what they can do because it's usually some admin rights that need to be done. And if multiple agents or accounts would start using that same service account, you're probably going to see that the permissions get broader and broader because this agent needs to do this task, and that's added to the token. So it certainly gets to a point where it's like a huge key that's given to an AI agent where you don't know what it's going to do with it, because that's the nature of AI. It's non-deterministic, so you don't know what AI is going to do with the token. And giving it too much access for a way too long period of time is a very dangerous thing to do, I think.
Yes, that's of course one of the very important things is around zero standing privilege, ephemeral access. So, from your opinion, it's one of the key infrastructure is to have an authorization system that's able to give out accesses based on some form of policies that are very short-lived.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly, I think, what needs to be in place. Is if you look at the amount of agents that are spinning up, the amount of tools that they are calling, the amount of tasks that they're doing, it's not something that you can keep up with or that you can control within service account or anything in the source. So you need to have those policies set up to make sure that these decisions can be evaluated on the spot and can be given or denied on the spot, because it's going way too quickly for us humans to keep track of it. I'm also curious if you, because you were at EIC, what is your view on it after a few days there?
So it seems to be mostly a question about maturity. There seems to be some organizations that are very mature and have been able to build this as infrastructure. But if you look at it, let's start with the policy side. Most organizations today do not have a externalized authorization, policy-based access control infrastructure in place.
Yeah.
So that will be part one.
Yeah.
And part two is to have the ability to give out a thermal access. So from a token minting or similar.
Yes. Yeah.
That's also not something that most organizations have in place.
Yeah, correct.
And even if you have let's say a PAM system or even a secret management system, it is not self-evident that this will actually able to meet these needs.
Correct. I agree, and it's also there's a couple of things you could do, I think, as an organization, is saying, okay, we're just going to move ahead. We're just going full blown with agentic AI and we'll look at the risk later. Or saying we're going to block everything because we don't have all this stuff in place. Or we're going to wait it out a bit. We're first going to get going with AI and then we'll figure out along the way. But I think one of the characteristics of AI, and it's also something you can see at the moment, is that it's growing so quickly within organizations. I think it's by now 91% of organizations are using agentic systems, and employees keep spinning them up, either sanctions or unsanctioned. And I think if you don't start getting these systems in place now, the problem is it's like small pain now versus big pain later.
Yep.
So it needs to be thought of. That's at the least.
So one thing we are seeing is that it seems like the agents are created on the target system. So historically, NHI is often generated in the central system.
Yeah.
And then handed out to the application teams. While with agents, it seems like almost all systems, they create agents out on the targets. Is that something you're seeing as well?
Can you elaborate a bit on that?
So if I look at Azure, to take an example.
Yeah.
The agents are created by the application teams. Yeah. They have the rights to create, but a standard configuration on Azure, they have the rights to create agents. So thousands upon thousands of agents are there. If you look at how NHI traditionally is created, the tradition is that the application team has to request the creation of the NHI from a central team. So it seems like for the agent layer that you have to take more an IBIP approach. So scan for them and then at least get a list of agents.
Yeah, so what you're saying is it's not like we get a list of agents before they're being created, but they are created, and then back in hindsight, we're going to see what agents were created. Is that a little bit what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's because what you just described, I think, is the happy flow, is that the application team is creating these agents on Azure, for example. But in reality, it's not just the application teams who are able and allowed to create agents that are building agents, but it's, yeah, nearly everyone in the organization is building these agents, whether it's visible or it's not visible. So then that, exactly what you mean, becomes even more important, because how are you going to look at all those agents that have been created if they're not, maybe not built on Azure? Maybe they're just built on Claude or some other unsanctioned LLM that's being used within the organization. So I think that's exactly right. It's and also I think NHIs in the past were usually planned to live for quite a long time, whereas with agents, it's more like we're spinning up an agent today. Maybe it spins up for an hour, it runs for an hour, and then we kill it again, and we spin up another agent that does something else. So they are just being spun down constantly, which makes it even more difficult to make a plan for it. And that's why I think also it makes sense to look at it in a discover kind of way, discover what's out there, and then take action on it. Yeah.
So it seems to me that one critical system that you need there is an ability to discover these agents.
Yeah, I agree. And here is another complexity, of course, because it's not, in an ideal situation, everybody's creating these agents on the tool AWS, Bedrock, Azure, whatever tools being used within the organization. But again, they're being spun up on different in browsers, in Cloud Code. So you need to have multiple ways to sniff out these agents. And that can be through endpoint management systems, browser plugins, and of course also still the sanctioned agents, so that you can actually import them from AWS or Azure into your IDP. Yeah, and that's like one of the key things. If we talk to customers, all of them are saying, we need to know what's there. We need to know what's happening in our organization. And at the moment, we don't know. So I think that's number one on the priority list for organizations is, where are my agents? I don't know where they are. I don't know how many I have. I don't know what they're doing. But getting to know where these agents are, where they're living inside the organizations is a really big priority for the customers that we're talking to.
Am I still audible?
Yes.
Okay, good.
You switched headsets again?
Yes, I've had some problems with my headset, and I
okay.
had a problem before that. I had a very long. I had to listen to my sound coming back, which meant that you had to talk very slowly so you could hear me.
Okay.
So hopefully this will now work.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the more bigger parts, because obviously you have a situation where you kind of per cloud, per platform, you do get some agent management. So if the agent is created in Azure, it's going to become visible in Azure or in Entra.
Yes.
But of course, that doesn't see the rest. You say like a local cloud or agent or whatever. So one of the decisions that you have to make as a customer company is to say, okay, I'm going to have multiple of these agent management systems per platform, or are we looking for a centralized system that scans all the platform, or at least all the major platforms, and are able to bring back the information about what agents exists? Has Okta any view on this? Is there I know you just published your new platform. Does this include this type of scanning functionality?
Yes, definitely. And I think if you compare it again to what we've just been doing in the past 10 years, right? Everybody has been working on making HR the source for humans to get onboarded into your organization. And as a multinational, or maybe not even as a multinational, you have multiple ways of getting of where these people are stored. Maybe you have multiple HR systems.
Yeah.
You've got external people who are coming in from IDPs that these corporate organizations are owning. Maybe you've got a couple that you want to manually onboard. So you want to link up with all those different systems. And it's not that different if you think about it from agents. So again, they need to be onboarded before we can actually manage their life cycle. So scanning them in the different places where they're living, and that includes definitely those ServiceNow, Salesforce, AWS, Azure. Those systems need to be scanned, and the agents need to be imported. And that's exactly one of the things that we have jaded in April 30th. Yeah.
So I think that's one part. So you start out with creating a registry where where good people that follow the rules go and add their agents, and then you need something to go out and scan for the people who are perhaps prioritize other things than bookkeeping properly. So you can find them.
Yeah, and I think it also it's easy to say, okay, all the people who are using agents in a non-sanctioned way, we're gonna block them. But there's also a mandate from the top in many organizations that people need to start using agents. They need to find ways to make themselves more productive, sprout new ideas, sprout new agents that bring value to the company.
Yeah.
So blocking it is also something that is going to cost you a competitive edge across other companies.
And fundamentally, if you have a business process that's relying on an agent, if you block it, you're shutting down the business. And
exactly.
That is not a successful way of behaving within most enterprises, no matter what.
Of
course, if you are very regulated, then it's a very different discussion. But for most enterprises that aren't in very regulated spaces, if you go around blocking business process, you will have a challenging conversation with either your manager's manager will have a challenging conversation at some point.
I agree. And if you look at EIC, I'm curious also because how was it 2 days?
It's a 4-day event, so I'm actually missing the last day today, unfortunately.
I'm sorry. What was the key takeaway for you coming back there?
So I think the first part was that you have this kind of maturity ladder. So the first part is to have a registry. Second part, find the things that is not in the registry. Then you have the discussion. Okay, if you look at Azure, for example, there you have a concept of you have these blueprints for access for agents that you can hand out to handle, because one of the big challenges is what we today call consent, and consent makes sense in the private citizen discussion. But if you look in the enterprise, it's actually more of a return on risk. So you want to spin up an agent that does something to reach a certain business goal, and that then results in a certain amount of risk, more attack surface. Are we going to approve that? And traditionally in Azure, you had this consent flows, but the volume and of course the traditional setup is the entire business impact assessment, risk management. The one big challenge I see is that that is a very time and resource intensive process. And if you're talking about an application, of course, that might have a development cycle that has 100+ development days, which often enterprise application has, then you can spend 10 days on a risk management process. If you look at an agentic, where that might have a few hours or a few days of development before we're supposed to have something that is addressing a certain business problem, you can't have 10 days of risk management. And you can't have, if you want to support kind of citizens developers and really leverage then you need to have a different process. The question there is then, is the right thing to do to follow this kind of blueprint and then say, okay, you're low risk, you're okay to run. Another approach that has been proposed is to have more of a guardrails. So instead of looking at the risk management, you define outcomes that are acceptable. So if you're a bank, for example, you say that, well, agents should not be able to transfer money, or at least agents shouldn't be able to transfer money to North Korea. and have this kind of very high level statements, kind of business level statements, and then make sure that you build those guardrails so that any kind of, okay, so if the agents can't transfer money, then we need to see how we integrate with the money transfer management systems, because that's usually centralized. At least there shouldn't be a huge amount, because then you not really in control. And then add those kind of controls into that part. Now that means that you kind of have the agents are kind of running, you have less controls on the agents themselves, but you have this kind of guardrails more holistically.
Yes. And I think it's also being added, right, by the EU AI Act, which has this same concept where you need to take into consideration when building these AI agents. And again, I think these guardrails, they are definitely necessary. And if you go back to the first thing that we talked about, right? You mentioned service accounts. If you say, okay, this agent can view this bank account, but they are not able to transfer money, they are not able to open a new account, etc. So you need to be really fine-grained in what these agents can be doing, and that's, I think, already goes beyond the scope of what a service account is meant to do. But exactly that, it's important to be really clear in what an agent should be able to do. What is their task? Build in the guardrails so that they are able to perform that task and only that task for the amount of time that they should be doing it. Yeah.
Because a lot of the challenges around Agentic is essentially the same kind of problems that we've had historically. But the challenge is that there's a factor 10 in volume where it's coming in, or a factor 100 in volume.
Yeah.
And it's clear that it's going to be very challenging if we are going to continue with kind of a very human-centric and very resource-intensive way of doing risk management.
Agreed.
And then there is important other parts, like you said, with the obviously it's always tempting to not, or rather setting up these types of policy driven ephemeral access, no standing, zero standing access, etc. That is not a trivial task to do that. It's something that you definitely also need to get funding for.
Agreed. It's also it feels sometimes like we are years and years into this AI era, but we're still like in the beginning. It's sometimes weird to realize that this is only going to keep growing, and it's not something that new protocols are still coming out. So the state where Agentic AI is in right now is going to be different than it is 3 months from now. That's what we're seeing as well. So as Okta, we're also constantly pivoting, looking at, okay, where's the market going now? Where do we need to go now? So it's an unrealistic expectation for companies to have this completely nailed down. But everybody's trying to figure this out and get towards the best situation possible. And that's what we're trying to do to help these companies go to as well. So there is no silver bullet at the moment saying, okay, do this and this and this and this, and you're all done, because this is evolving so quickly. But doing nothing is also, on the other hand, not an option, because the agents that are running wild right now they impose a huge risk. And one thing that I wanted to mention, because you mentioned it just a couple of minutes ago, about if you block something, the enterprise won't be happy. I think you mentioned that.
Yep.
But if an agent goes rogue, then you want to be able to block that agent. But if you don't have them visible, or they're using a service account with many different agents, then suddenly blocking becomes either impossible, or it's going to block a whole other set of processes running. So I think that's another key area to look at. Am I able to block things when things go south?
Yeah, and that of course connects to the first part is to at least have the visibility on these agents. Exactly. And what NHI they're using, because if you either have a situation where you have an intrusion and an attacker takes over these agents
Yes.
and or the service accounts they are running, or just a case where someone was a little bit too ambitious with their instructions to the agents, you do need to figure out A, how do I block them, and B, what is the impact when I do blocking. So if we shut down the agents, that's one layer, then that agent stops.
Yes.
Okay. But what you usually see kind of in the rest of the world, you don't see the agent, you see the NHI that the agent is leveraging to connect to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So especially under time pressure, the easiest thing tend to be to shut down the NHI. But if that NHI is then used by multiple systems, you very quickly then see, okay, I shut down, this thing over there.
Yes.
But I also shut down this and this and this and this.
Yes, exactly. I think that's go ahead.
And that, of course, is a classical problem that people inherit NHI and use it for different purposes. Or you have a situation where a function that was built for one purpose has been repurposed, and then suddenly you kind of you remove that because you don't need that anymore, and move. So these 5 things. And I think this is going to be a very challenging part to kind of keep the hygiene on these things, because most cases this doesn't break immediately, but it breaks 3 months down the road, or 2 years down the road, or 5 years down the road, where basically the system become unmanageable, and then you spend your entire time being on P1 calls.
One risk there is that somebody's building out the agent, it's sitting somewhere, exactly happens what you just mentioned, and then that person leaves and nobody has even oversight of that agent is running until something happens, and then nobody knows what it's doing. Then again, the visibility part and treating that agent as an identity, because then it's suddenly, if you want to block things, you're blocking that agent or that session or the user that it's acting on behalf of, and you can do that like targeted instead of we're just gonna block this NHI and let's see what happens.
No, it certainly is a very interesting, and this could of course be also, I've been trying to been in, I think, almost 20 plus years, having been in many discussions about policy-based access control. And what I've seen is that it only really works from a business perspective if you find a clear business driver to roll it out, the compelling event. Trying to convince application teams that they should rewrite their code to externalize their authorization is usually not something that they want to do. But this could very well be one of these compelling events.
Yes, and I also think that policy-based access control, there are already business problems. You're going to already see business problems within organizations that have a need for these policy-based access controls. And you've got really clear examples like financial institutions where I want to, for example, have a budget available for my kid who wants to buy something every now and then, and everything under like 50 euros they can do the transaction, and everything above they can. So there are clear use cases for policy-based access controls in many organizations, and they're gonna be even more targeted if we're talking about AI agents, because if now I'm gonna my kid is going to give an AI agent a task.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. If these shoes become discounted, please buy them for me, and maybe many more. So now suddenly that AI agent is doing the spending, and when it's you can either still have that human in the loop, of course, saying, okay, I want to have that approved, but maybe for smaller amounts it should be able to do so by itself. So there it becomes an even broader topic on the policy-based access control. So, and it needs to do that on the fly, because otherwise it's too late already. So that needs to be in place.
Well, very interesting discussions. So I think we should get towards the end here so that doesn't come too long, our
Yeah.
podcast here. But if you want to discuss these topics more, I think that you will be present at both Identity Week and Helleview IM.
We will be at Helleview. We have our own AI Identity Summit next week. The 27th registrations are still open. 28th, sorry.
Yep.
And then I will also be at Identity Week on June 9th. Yeah.
So then let's end this on a little bit of a lighter note. So what are you looking for this summer? Do you have any interesting vacation plans?
Yeah, we are. So I have two kids, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and we're going to Croatia. It's the favorite country for my wife, and we've been there a couple times already in the past, and yeah, we just love it there. So it's gonna be probably pretty hot. In the past, before they went to school, we tried to go like in June or September because the temperature is a little bit different. But yeah, now we are bound to school rules, so we have to go in July, August.
Yep.
So we'll see how the temperature is, but it's well, I'm looking forward to that. And yourself?
We are heading to Sweden and to the US for my in-laws.
That's nice.
And for the first time, my kids are going on a scouting trip to Denmark. So
really?
we're having vacation without kids for the first time for 16 years.
Nice. Oh, that's also going to be a new experience.
Yes. It's the other side of life's highway when you kids are slowly moving out. Well, thank you very much for coming. And
thank you.
If you could send me the links to the events, then I will make sure that we put this into the notes as well.
Perfect.
Have a great
Thank you
day.
very much. You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.